Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. For a week 5 review, I am, as ever, your host, Annie Davis, here with us, a returning guest, our resident Bengals fan. Here with us today is the Touchdowns, Rory-Jo Daniels. Rory, how are you?
Yes, good, thank you. Apart from, obviously, not the best weekend for Bengals fans, but apart from that, we're in good spirits.
Oh, we will get into that later on, I'm sure. That one of the games of the week, the game of the week, we'll get into that later on in the episode. So we'll start off on Thursday Night Football, where maybe this was a game of the week, actually. It's one of the two, as the Falcons earned a overtime 36-30 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as Kirk Cousins set a maybe bit of history. He became just a 22nd player in NFL history to throw for more than 500 yards in a game. In total, 509 yards. He had quite the game. Looking at the total stat line of this game, once my computer loads up, this is. So he had 509 yards, 4 touchdowns, just 1 interception. In contrast to Baker Mayfield's 180 yards and 3 touchdowns, 0 picks, and just 5 incomplete passes. I mean, first of all, Rory, what a game this was.
Yeah, it was excellent, and obviously a big one for that conference for the NFC South, and obviously for the Falcons to keep themselves in it. Obviously, they were well fancied going into the season, so it was a big game for them to make sure that they weren't being outpaced by Tampa Bay, and yeah, it was a fantastic watch.
It really was, and I think we've already seen Kirk Cousins in 2 of the first 5 weeks win a game in prime time, which is something he's been notoriously mocked for really in his whole NFL career, is not winning the big games. And whilst you don't win playoff games, you don't win Super Bowls after 5 weeks, but I think for Cousins, he seems to be answering a lot of critics right now. I mean, the stat line there was incredible, and it was just a fantastic game. I think Thursday Night Football has been for a lot of years, pretty much since the move to Amazon, been pretty dire affair. Been a lot of bad Thursday games. But this might be the best ever in some time. It has been. It was quite the game, and I think sometimes you see occasions where teams are on a shorter week. More injuries can happen. It can sometimes cause a really bad game. But this game was fantastic. I thought, Drake London had a great game. The running game was excellent for the Falcons. I mean, the Buccaneers were unlucky to lose because I thought they were really good in all aspects as well. Baker Mayfield put on as good as they perform as you can without winning a game. And get onto more of that later on with a different quarterback, which Rory probably wants to avoid talking about for as long as possible. But I thought Buccaneers were vastly unlucky. But it's one of those games where sometimes you can't just accept that we were just outplayed, or it was just one of those days where it was just luck was on their side. And pretty efficient game. I mean, there wasn't many I can think of controversial moments. It was pretty clean game. It was overall really enjoyable watch, and what a way to start the week. But moving on to our Sunday slate. So first of all, of course, the big one for UK fans was, of course, the first London game, which took place on Sunday at 2:30 p.m. as the Vikings took on the Jets. The Vikings moved to 5-0 after a win for 23 points to 17 over the New York Jets, a game which saw Roger throw for the first time in his career, 2 interceptions in the first quarter. He had 3 in total, not a great day. Had more passing yards than Sam Darnold, but overall it was not the day at all for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and which obviously we have actually recorded our Week 6 preview prior to this episode, so you've already seen our reaction to the news that came out today of recording that Rob Saleh, head coach of the Jets, has been fired. So the last game for the Jets as head coach was in London, and I mean, this game, you could argue that Aaron Rodgers has probably got him the sack, really. I don't know how much you say he had in the firing, but I think that performance has just caused an all-round frustration from the ownership, and in the end, it's costing his job. But I thought the game itself was good. You see, a lot of London games are quite not the best. You see either one-sided affairs or low-scoring games, but this was definitely up there. And the atmosphere was incredible. I was very honoured to represent this podcast at the game, and what you saw around you was you saw a lot of Jets fans from both New York and the UK were there really loud. The Vikings fans were even louder. It was a fantastic atmosphere, and the game itself lived up to it. It was really good. Of course, you had really end-to-end stuff in the first quarter. You had the fumble from the Vikings, which led to a turnover. Just to get the ball. What does Rodgers do? Throws a pick six to Andrew Van Ginkel. I think it was like a 60-yard run, 63-yard run from him. Incredible effort from him, the former Dolphin. And his next drive as well on the offense, Jets, he also threw another interception. So I thought the Jets did great on defense. At times they stifled Sam Darnold. There was a point where he was out of the game because of a hit, and but in the end, the Vikings just showed why they're one of only two teams left there unbeaten. I thought it was a bit of a collapse second half. They were 17 points up, and then they allowed the Jets back into that game. But they got the job done, and not every game can be as pretty as it has been so far. They're going to have these games where they tumble, where they have issues. But most important thing, they got out there with a win, and I think the Vikings keep rolling. But I do feel like I still see the train going. I mean, they've got a few favourable games the next few games. They've got a bye week coming up, of course, in week 6. But Vikings, for me, look really good. And the defense especially has been mostly good. But I don't know, I just see the hype train ending. What's your thoughts on the game overall, Roy, but also the Vikings?
Yeah, it was an entertaining game. And obviously, the way it started, Rodgers sort of got the Jets in a bit of a hole, and then managed to dig them out, and then couldn't quite finish it off. Obviously, the interception at the end, and that's the thing. I think with Rodgers is he doesn't need that sort of workload at his age now to put it on his shoulders. They need to be able to establish the run game more effectively. And obviously, it's felt the relationship between him and Salah has felt uneasy, really, all through. Obviously, with the injury last season, we didn't sort of get to see that relationship. We're hearing things that it might not be, and then the season's just started, and you can see the relationship wasn't there, the working relationship. I was surprised to see that they fired Salah because I don't think he's done. Obviously, he's a defensive mind, and the defensive side of the Jets has been pretty good, and you saw that against the Vikings. They managed to keep him in the game. But yeah, there's obviously tension there that's probably going to come out, and we're going to find out more to the story. And for the Vikings, I thought very impressive, and that is what they're going to have to do this season because Sam Darnold isn't an elite quarterback. He's played at an elite level to start the season, and what we needed to see was that in situations where maybe he can't reach that level against a good defense like the Jets were, can the Vikings defense keep things tight, and they did a fantastic job, and I've been really super impressed with that unit. And I think the edge pressure they're getting and the production they're getting from the linebackers, is it Evan Pace, and obviously Harrison Smith's having a great season at his age. And even when they've had to use, I think it's Grugier Hill had a couple of games early on in the season as a backup linebacker. He came in and was making plays. Andrew Van Ginkel, obviously, with the big play. So they're all doing it. I was a bit wary of that unit. I didn't think that the defence would be as good as it has been. But I think that's been a large part of why Darnold's not had. He's thrived because he's not been under pressure because the defence is playing so well.
Yeah, I think, really there's been a lot of games this year where, he hasn't really had to come back. He's been often leads early on, and we saw really, which maybe should be a worry for the Vikings, the last 2 games in particular, they almost let lead slip. I mean, they were 28-0 up against the Packers, almost lost that game. I do think that there was 5 minutes more on that game clock, they may have lost that game. And then a week later, of course, this game in London, you saw a similar thing. I mean, they were 17-0 up. Allowed that touchdown late on in the second quarter, and then they struggled second half to really get it going as much as the first half. I think the rain had a big part to play in that as well. That did obviously alter the pitch, and there was a lot more slips from both teams, both sides of the ball.
And obviously, what you're getting there as well is it shows how good Kevin O'Connell is as a head coach and a play caller. Obviously, you get them scripted plays, first 15 plays that we always talk about that are scripted. That's when Darnold's going to be at his best. That's why we've seen him jump out to leads and stuff, because that's sort of the stuff that O'Connell's been boiling up all week to take on an opposition. And that's probably why we see that little bit of a drop off when things start further into games where maybe O'Connell's not got the game script for Darnold to go off, and sort of Darnold maybe ad-libbing a bit more, and it's not quite as effective.
No, and I think I just. Do you see it lasting this run? Because I look at this Vikings team, and yes, they've got all these players, and they've won 5 games, they've beaten some good teams along the way, but I don't know. Some part of me thinks it's not going to last. I mean, I'm going to get their schedule up now. I'm going to look at their schedule, see what they got. They got the Lions next, I believe. So they got a bye, but they got the Lions, the Rams, the Colts, the Jags, the Titans, the Bears, Cardinals, Falcons, Bears again, then Seahawks, Packers, and Lions. I mean, there's some very winnable games in that schedule. It really is, and I think.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? When you look at that, apart from obviously the Lions, everybody else has sort of looked like like you would expect the Vikings to give them a game. So that I don't, like you say, I can't see them continuing where they're going to be. I don't see this being a team that we look at and there's only lost 1 or 2 games at the end of the season. But I think they probably have enough. Trust O'Connell enough from what we've seen, and obviously as long as they stay healthy, which is a big one for every team, that they're probably going to be a playoff team, and they're going to give somebody a good run for the money. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm not sure I'm sold on them as a Super Bowl contender yet, but it's been an impressive start.
Yeah, you never know. We are due sort of a Nick Foles Eagles X season, and I think that they've already got one part of the thing that shares his Eagles season in terms of their starting quarterback at the start of the year getting injured and the backup doing well. And this is obviously hypothetical, but say if the Vikings were to win a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold, how do you reckon Jason McCarthy feels watching that? Do you think it could be one where they stick with him and just already trade away McCarthy, or they give him just a few years and then they let him sit behind Darnold? If that was to happen, the Vikings were to even just make the playoffs and go far, and Darnold is a key part of that. What do you think happens with McCarthy next year? Do you think it is just a case of him sitting a few years behind Darnold and then eventually making a start like Jordan Love did, like Aaron Rodgers did, or do you think there would be any sort of other scenario that could take place?
Yeah, I think you'd have to see it for. It's tricky, isn't it? Because obviously they're going to have to make a decision at the end of this year, because Darnold's on a 1 year, 10 million contract, so there is going to be a decision to make. And yeah, if they did go that far, it then brings up what's the value of Darnold? Is it just a one season thing? Is it can it have longevity? I mean, he's got the pedigree. We all thought he was. He was. I don't know. He was top 3, wasn't he? I think he went third pick in the first round to the Jets. So obviously the talent's there. It's just been getting the right situation. Obviously we can see the Jets have had trouble ever settling a quarterback in. We had Zach Wilson. It's never been right. So the situation he was hampered with. So yeah, I think you'd have to consider he's going to want, if hypothetically, if they did win a Super Bowl, he's going to want big money. So it is a big decision to make. And yeah, I think you'd probably have McCarthy sat there. You wouldn't want to trade him this soon into it. But yeah, definitely at the end of a second year, should Darnold get a new contract, you'd have to be thinking move McCarthy or Darnold. Or it would be an interesting one. It'd definitely be an intriguing sort of conundrum for them. But they'd be happy because they wouldn't really care if they won a Super Bowl, would they?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. Remember, I think there's definitely worse problems to have. It's definitely better than paying a quarterback $200 million guaranteed and him not performing, which is a good segue into our next segment, which is going to be the Browns, who lost to the Commanders. They lost their scoreline of my mouse is again freezing on me. It was a score of 34 points to 13. As well, the other 6 p.m. game saw the Bears beat the Panthers by 36 points to 10. And the Dolphins did get finally a win after 3 losses in a row. They beat the New England Patriots by 15 points to 10. Wasn't a pretty game. Now, normally I like to review these games fully because normally, as you all know by now, I do watch games on Game Pass as well as watching Red Zone on the other screen. But as I was at the game in London, doing media after the game, by the time I got out of the Vikings press conference, it was already mid to late second quarter. The first thing I saw was that botched field goal for Jason Sanders. But what I saw second half, what I saw in that game, it looked to me like we actually went to the run game for once. I mean, it's been the constant issue I've had with Daniels coaching is that either don't run the ball at all or we tend to neglect the run after a couple of quarters. And what I saw in this game, obviously we had most of it back. That was big. A-Chain going down injured. That's not a good sign. Second year in a row he's got injured. But I thought it was really good to see Jalen Wright rise up and take up the challenge. I mean, over 80 yards from 13 carries was just, I think, for me, the story of the game. I think for me, watching it, albeit in bits, for me, every time they turned to the Dolphins game on Red Zone, they would show Jalen Wright on offense running it. And I think for a guy who hasn't really had the chance much to show what he can do, and obviously we all know what he can do from his college days, very fast running back, and he really stood up to the challenge. I think certainly with two out for the next 5-6 weeks minimum, to have a running game like that working and being efficient, I think is a real good positive for the rest of the season and the rest of the time, even with Tua back, to save his health and save his his workload. If you have that running game working well, it's only a good thing. So I think Jalen Wright for me was the star of the show. Obviously, it looked for a long time like we were going to lose that game. We were 10-3 down at one point. Finally held the lead. We hadn't done that all season until today, so that was good. And obviously, with we'll get into more later on, but the Bills losing as well. They lost 23-20 to the Texans. We're only 1 point behind top of the AFC East, and considering how bad it's been all season, only one win behind the top place in the AFC East. Albeit we got a bye week next week, and the Bills and Jets are playing each other, so we'll move to 2 wins between us. But still, it gives us the chance. I think they got bye weeks coming up as well. So yeah, I think we've got the Colts after the bye week. I think I'm confident playing them with a week extra rest. So if you can move to 3-3, and the Bills, say they are 4-3 or 4-4, whatever they are by the time we play that game, I think it gives you confidence that we get Tua back. Even though I'm not his biggest fan, he's better than Huntley, he's better than Skylar Thompson. So overall, very happy with the result as we now move to 2-3. Moving on to the other games that took place in the 6 p.m. slate. Of course, we'll get onto it now. We'll get it out of the way for you. The Ravens against the Bengals. I mean, what a game. I mean, first of all, I know you guys lost, but just what a game this was.
Yeah, it was a fantastic advert for the AFC North and what it's turned into with obviously Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, two of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, and they lived up to the billing. They were both fantastic. Burrow played it easily his best game of the season, connecting with Chase and Higgins on deep throws. It's sort of the culmination of what we wanted the offense to be all the time that we've put this selection of players together. And probably this is the best the offense has looked of the Zach Taylor era, even when the Super Bowl run was on. Actually, this is probably how the run game is being at its most effective. Chase Brown, finally, he looks explosive. We've got Andre Josevas has come in and he makes big plays, and we've been able to use Chase out of the slot because we don't have Tyler Boyd now that was a slot only player, so he was taking snaps off Chase, being able to move around the formation. We're seeing Burrow do things under center, which was obviously a big thing that we didn't see. He preferred playing out of shotgun, so we're seeing all those wrinkles. Obviously, Dan Pitcher's come in as the new offensive coordinator, and he's done a fantastic job. The only problem is the other side of the ball is probably the worst we've seen in the Zach Taylor sort of Lou Anarumo era, and it just doesn't look fixable, to be honest. We look slightly better up front. I expected Derrick Henry to run completely over us, which he didn't. He was still averaging 6 yards a carry, but it was controlled to a degree. It was just Jackson. We couldn't get to Jackson quick enough, which obviously we used to because he moves around so fantastically well. I mean, there's one play I think where he was nearly 20 yards back from where it was snapped, and he sort of strong arms Sam Hubbard to the ground, and then still makes the throw for a touchdown. And you're just thinking, God, how can you stop that? But for us, the secondary just looked completely out of sorts again. Cam Taylor-Britt's getting beat deep week in, week out. Dax Hill suffered an injury we're gonna lose him for the rest of the season, so that's one outside corner gone. Mike Hilton was obviously injured this week, so yeah, it's just a mess, and it's just difficult to see how you can be capable of making a playoff run with a defence that's in that sort of state. I don't know whether they're going to turn it around or whether they can turn it around defensively. I know people are being quite optimistic. On paper, we've got a good run of games now where we could perhaps get back on an even keel, but to me, it feels like it's lost. We seem to play up to the competition and play down to the competition. You know, we've had good games against the Chiefs and the Ravens where we've been able to elevate our game to that level. But at the same time, against the teams we're expected to beat, like the Patriots in week 1, we just don't get it going at all. So I don't know where we go from here. But yeah, I don't want to lean too heavily on the Bengals because the Ravens deserve a lot of credit for what they were doing, and Jackson's just fantastic. And it was enjoyable to watch if it wasn't against my team. But yeah, that's how I always feel with Jackson. I'm always rooting for him when he plays everybody else because I think it's just great to see a guy that can do it in the running game and is turned into such a efficient passer as well.
Yeah, he certainly has, answered those critics that his passing, and looking at stats alone. I mean, he had, 348 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks, and he had 2 fumbles. But ultimately, when the chips were down, same with him and Henry, they got the job done. And you mentioned that play with Sam Hubbard. I mean, that for me was play of the week by a mile because from a play where you fumble the ball originally, then he obviously scrambles to his right, then he stiff off Hubbard, and then he throws across his body, which is always a no-no for quarterbacks. Throws across his body, finds they're likely, and that was a point where down by 10. I think at that point in the fourth quarter, misses that throw. They probably don't get any points, maybe 3 at most, and then that could either be a pick as well, and that could have sealed the game. And I think it was just unbelievable. I think it just shows again. Big moments, you can count on him to, I know he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, hasn't made a Super Bowl, hasn't won an AFC Championship, but it was plays like that. It's so fun to watch, and it was really fun to watch it in the pub. Watching it in the Beehive, which is a very popular destination for NFL goers to Tottenham games, and it was one of the best games I've watched ever. I don't normally watch games with people because normally I'm watching on my own because all my friends don't like the sport, and it's always normally on my own watching games. But when you get to watch a game like that in around a pub full of NFL fans, not just a couple of friends who only watch Super Bowl once a year that are asking the rules every 2 seconds, it was nice watching with a bunch of NFL fans. There was Bengals fans in the room, there was Ravens fans in the room. I was next to Freddie, of course, Steelers fans. He had a key eye on it from the AFC North point of view. Kerry Jacob Bryant, who's a Ravens fan, she was obviously looking on with intent as well, and it was just what a game to watch. And Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, I've got to give him credit. I mean, he had 5 touchdowns, 0 picks. So 1 pick, I should say. Almost 400 yards passing. I mean, Jamar Chase had almost 200 yards receiving with 2 touchdowns. I mean, Zay Flowers, 100 yards. Derrick Henry, 92 yards, a touchdown. On offense, defense-wise, it was probably a bit of a car crash to watch. But offense-wise, it was just such a fun game to watch. And
yeah, and I think that was a thing for the Bengals as well. Obviously, the final we have to talk about the final decision. When you look at how well Burrow and Chase were linking up, for us to choose to run the ball 3 times when we turned it over there in overtime, obviously to set up the field goal, but not to try and get a chunk play to make that field goal easier than 52 yards. It just seemed unbelievable. I know they've come out afterwards and said that one of the plays Burrow checked out of a pass play into a run play, but it just seemed criminal, really, how easily they were passing the ball. To me, you put the ball in the hands of your star players when you need them the most. And I think Burrow to Chase should have been on the table at that point to at least get a first down, or could we get it to, like a 40-yard field goal, or a 35-yard field goal, something more manageable. It just seemed to just run it 3 times straight up the gut when the Ravens knew exactly what we were going to do and that we were just trying to get 2 or 3 yards extra. That's the kind of thing that maddens me, because I do feel like Zach Taylor can be too safe with his decisions, and I'd like to see us embrace how special Burrow and Chase are and let them loose. And I just thought that was a bit of a cop out, really, at the end.
Yeah, I can see it on the one hand in terms of, it would have been a nightmare if you'd done that and you'd thrown a pick and then Ravens, go for a pick 6 or something. But at the same time, probably betting 51 yards these days is I'm not going to say a chip shot, but we've seen these days kickers hitting it from 55, 60 yards. He probably thought McPherson, who's got a good track record in the NFL, probably thought, oh yeah, he can make the yards. That's probably why I do get it, because, you do want to get the win. Obviously, at times are desperate, so you don't want to, blow the lead and all that, or miss a chance when you could, worst nightmare would have been if you got the pick six. People would be saying, oh, should have just run the ball down. Like, do you think of the classic example being the Falcons in the Super Bowl when they went for passing plays, got sacked, went out of field goal range? That could have changed the game and won in that Super Bowl. So I think definitely pros and cons to both. I think I can see exactly what he's done, and exactly what you're saying as well. So yeah, definitely pros and cons. But I think in terms of one of the best losing quarterback performances I've seen from a team, from a player ever. I mean, to have that many yards and not win the game, it's just unlucky. I mean, for Burrow, it's a shame because it seems like right now that his career is going to be defined by a bad O-line and a struggling defense. So I think he said it himself in a press conference after the game that we're not a team going for a championship right now, which is probably a fair assumption. I mean, 1-4, definitely one of the better 1-4 teams I've seen in my lifetime. I mean, he ran the Chiefs close, could have won that game easily, and should have won this game against the Ravens really with that field goal. So really, you could easily be looking at the season with a 3-2 record, a 2-3 record. So I think, this is those little fine margins that right now seem to be going against the Bengals. But I think, it's just one of those things. I think Zach Taylor is awfully conservative, but again, you can't argue with, he's made a Super Bowl, he's made the AFC Championship game, he's made you guys competitive again. So I think, it's one of those ones where it's such a fine balance. And I think really in this game, we've also been undone by just almost the genius of Lamar Jackson. And, Derrick Henry just takes one magical 50-yard run, which in the end seals the game for the Ravens and gets them an easy field goal to win the game from Tucker. But 1-4, do you still have hope of the playoffs, or do you think that this is going to be one of those seasons where it's just, not your year?
Personally, I don't. I know I've seen a lot of people try and explain it into, I've still got confidence and we can do this. And I just don't see how you can string results together if your defense is playing the way we're playing. I just think teams can take the top off us and they can run on us. So I think we've got major problems at safety. We brought Von Bell back. He's not looked the same. Geno Stone's not looked like the player that we expected when we signed him in free agency. All the issues that we had last year are still there, and if not worse. And I don't see him putting it together. And I think I am in the camp of, I think there needs to be strong discussions had about T. Higgins, because I don't think they have any intention of keeping him next season. I don't think they're going to sign him again. I think that's gone, and I think if you don't think you're going to make the playoffs, you have to have discussions about trading him and see if anybody would offer a second round pick for him or something like that. I think that needs to be, but it's the Bengals. I doubt it will happen, but from my perspective, that's why I'd be looking now and try and get some picks together and probably assemble a defense that warrants, having Burrow on the other side. You need to have a defense that can live up to that sort of superstar that we've got on the offense.
I think you're right. I think certainly a lot of teams that are interested in him. He's proved in his career to be a really good number 2 in the league. And you think about, teams that could go for him. You think about if the Raiders trade away Devontae Adams, he could go there. Steelers could go for him. I think the Chiefs, without obviously Rashee Rice, they could be a team that could look to him. And I think he would certainly jump at the chance to go to him. I think the Chiefs also jump at the chance to get rid of one of the receivers, which, for a team that has caused them problems. The only team that has really had the Chiefs' number in recent years has been the Bengals. And, even this season alone, they called the Chiefs the hardest game so far of the year. I think they might want to get that. But I don't know whether the Bengals want to trade to the Chiefs. I think Jamar Chase will certainly have something to say about that, about his hatred of the Chiefs. So I think there'll be plenty of teams that'll be after him. And I think that, if you can get second round pick, maybe even a couple of thirds in a second, or 1 third, 1 second, or just a second. I think there's draft capital there. You can go out and get someone. You've got Jermaine Burton, who you drafted this year, that could have more of a role and could give him a chance to excel. So I think hope's all hope's not lost, but it's certainly probably not going to be the Bengals' year. Moving on to the other games, the Colts still can't win in Jacksonville. They lost by 37 points to 34 to give the Jags their first win of the season. As well as this, in the later slate, Denver Broncos beat the Raiders by 34 points to 18, despite quarterback Bo Nix and head coach Sean Payton's sideline argument. The Cardinals in a shock win over the 49ers. They won by 24 points to 23. The Green Bay Packers beat the Rams 24 points to 19. And the New York Giants beat the Seahawks 29 points to 20. And then finally on Sunday Night Football, the Dallas Cowboys scored a touchdown from Jalen Tolbert with 20 seconds remaining to win that game by 20 points to 17. Now, our final game we're going to focus on is the game from last night as the New Orleans Saints took on the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and it was a win for the Chiefs by 26 points to 13, as the Chiefs now go 5-0 along with the Minnesota Vikings as the only two teams left the NFL with a beaten record. On this game, I watched in full, both on the commute to work, but also my lunch break. I thought the Chiefs were really impressive in this game. I think that the coaching it goes to show, because you saw in the first half, really, all game pretty much, the use of tight ends like Kelsey and Gray. And I think that, from a team that has lost their best receiving weapon, apart from Kelsey, out for a long time, they just kept using the tight ends. I thought it was really smart for them, because it just kept working. And when they finally start, getting to grips with, okay, tight ends are going to do this, they go for the run game a lot more. So I think overall the coaching job was amazing. A little bit of a concern about Jawan Taylor, another holding call for him. I think he's the most penalised lineman last season, and again, he's looking like a guy obviously you know very well yourself. And Jawan Taylor, he probably isn't having the best time in the Chiefs. He's having a lot of holding calls, and it's at one point, if you saw Andy Reid on the sidelines looking very frustrated. At one point, did they say enough is enough? But apart from that, I mean, I love the fact that how clinical Mahomes was at times. I mean, there was a point in the game where he missed Xavier Worthy with an easy throw. Next play, he finds him for first down gains. I think there was so much to be admired about this Chiefs team. I mean, they're 5-0, they're absolutely rolling, and they could easily go and beat. And I don't think they will, but they've got the team. Even though they haven't got the best receivers in the world, they find a way for these guys to make plays. I mean, Smith-Schuster, over 100 yards in this game, made a big play as well. When they get the interception in the red zone from their, I forgot his name, and then number 50, 37-yard return, literally next offensive play, just 2 plays in, he finds Juju for a massive gain, and that gets him in the red zone area. There was just so many plays from Mahomes as well. There was a 3rd and 9 play late on in the game where he's not the fastest player in the NFL, but he seems to make these runs work. He finds his little gaps and finds way. He ends up making it a first down. After originally they called it a 4th and short, they ended up making it a first down. And yeah, it's just clinical. And it's just, at what point can you stop them? I mean, it's annoying because they haven't got the players really to. They have the coaching, they have the personnel, they have the winning mentality. They know how to win these games. So how anyone stops them, I don't know. It's just a worrying sign for the rest of the league. And I do think that whilst you don't win Super Bowls after 5 weeks, I do think at the same time, very impressed with the Chiefs. I mean, the Saints, they are now who we thought they were. We all thought they'd be a 7-win team, 8-win team. And I think right now they're 2-3 after 2-0 start, a really impressive first 2 weeks. I don't think the high train obviously ended a lot quicker than the Vikings might do. After they're still going. But I think the Saints, for me, I think Derek Carr's injury is probably a concern. I don't know how bad it is yet, but even when he was there, they had one good play, that one touchdown to Raheem Shaheed, but it wasn't great on offense really from the Saints. And I think they are now exactly who they thought we were. But what was your take on the game, Rory?
Yeah, I thought the Chiefs were very methodical. I thought it was a bit of a slog watching them on offense. Like you say, they seem to rotate the characters, but the results are the same. Obviously, Rice has been so potent early on in the season. We saw the injuries obviously going to have a big effect on him. We wanted to see how are they going to sort of adjust, who's going to get targets. And obviously, it was nice to see Kelsey get back in. We see like bit of a flashback to the old Kelsey. And then the rest of it was a bit of a throwback to sort of previous names that we've seen. Obviously, Juju Smith-Schuster coming back into it, and Nicole Hardman had a couple of players where he was in it, and then Noah Gray. So yeah, it's just Mahomes is so good that he can just find any of these guys and make it work. I mean, even Kareem Hunt, I don't think his average per carry was anything exceptional, but it just kept the ball moving to him like favourable positions, good second and short, third and short, and it was just methodical, and I don't think the Saints knew what to do with it. And to add to it, on the other side of the ball, what Steve Spagnuolo does is that's the constant, isn't it? That they're always in a game because that defense is so good. Chris Jones, Derek Carr is not good enough to be able to cope with Chris Jones being in the backfield relentlessly. George Karlaftis the same, and then obviously on the back end they've got a talented secondary. I thought Brian Cook, he had a couple of. I know he got beat on one deep shot, but then he came back and had a couple of nice plays. I just think they're really well set up, and like you say, this coaching is so effective, and I think they just outplanned the Saints, and obviously Carr just looked rattled. I do think there is concerns with the tackle spots. You mentioned Taylor, and on the other side they've got Wanya Morris and the rookie Kingsley Suamatea. I think both sides are a worry, and when you're going to come up against some teams that are more effective, I don't know, like we saw the Broncos against the Jets, where the pass rush was really effective. When you get guys like that, when you have to go up against TJ Watts and the Steelers, or the Texans have got a good pass rush, the Vikings have got a good pass rush, I'll be interested to see whether they can handle that, whether that's going to be a long-term problem once you get into the playoffs, deep into the playoffs. Can they protect Mahomes enough to keep it going? But yeah, I was surprised because I was thinking, God, this is a bit of a slog watching him do this. And then sort of early into the second half, then they had that drive where Smith-Schuster caught a couple of deep ones, and you think, he just kind of blew it off, and Mahomes had sort of opened up a little bit. And so they can do anything. That is the beauty of them. They are equipped to do everything, and Mahomes is special. So it did just feel like a typical Chiefs. You go into it with loads of question marks, saying what are they going to do here if this happens, and it's just they've got the answers.
You really do. And I want to ask you before we go a couple of quiz questions, which all about Mahomes, who did reach now 100 career games. First of all, can you name me the quarterback who's beaten Mahomes the most time in his career?
Joe Burrow?
No, I thought it'd be him. I did think it'd be him, but it's not.
Oh, is it going to be somebody unexpected?
No, I mean you could argue it in terms of different reasons, but no, I'm not surprised by the answer in a way. Well, actually, maybe I am. I thought it'd be a division rival, but it's not a division rival.
Yeah.
I was thinking I thought maybe it'd be Derek Carr, but it's not. It's not Derek Carr.
Yeah, because I was going to say Herbert because obviously division, but no, go on. You have to.
Josh Allen. Apparently, he's beaten him. I think 4 times he's beaten him, which I think they've all come in the regular season. I think it's maybe it's 3, but yeah, Josh Allen is apparently the one who's beaten him the most times. Can you name the team that's beaten Mahomes the most time in his career?
Oh, yeah, you'd think divisional again, wouldn't you? Raiders.
No, but you're close.
Chargers.
No, the other team.
Broncos.
Yeah.
No, that does surprise me.
Yeah, and I think one of them came in his first game, and he played that week 17 or week 18 game, and he came in for that one game, the final game of the year before he started behind Alex Smith. I think that one game came from that. I think they beat him a couple of years ago as well. So I don't think many have beaten him more than once. But yeah, Allen is 3-1 in the regular season and 0-2 in the playoffs. So I think that is the magic number that he's got over Mahomes. But I'm sure Mahomes sitting there with his 3 Super Bowl rings doesn't care that Allen beat him 3 times in the regular season. So yeah, fair play to him. That was maybe we'll end the podcast for today. So first of all, once again, thank you to Rory for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. I always enjoy coming on and having a bit of a chat about it. So
And are you going to be in London at all this year? Are you going to be heading down to the capital?
Not this year. No, I know the touchdown. We have got it covered. This time round, we've got different faces going. But yeah, not for me this year round. But potentially next year, either that or Dublin for the college football next year. So that's on the list that I want to do. So
absolutely, and I think for those who are keen followers of the touchdown or want to get into a new channel, we have done some content recently. I did attend the training session as part of both this podcast as well as touchdown. So there's a written article on the website which has my experience at the Jets practice session, as well as checking out this podcast. Twitter is also on behalf of the touchdown, so you'll see content on there. And of course, some good content. We had one of our writers go down there for the game. We got another writer coming down for the Bears practice session on Friday. So yeah, plenty of content for myself and others on the touchdown over this whole London series. This has been our Week 5 review with your host, as ever, myself, Andy Davis, with our guest today, Rory-Jo Daniels, and we'll see you guys next time.